I slept so well that night, I swear to God, nothing woke me up, nothing disturbed me in my sleep. I didn't even hear anything. I felt like everything was alright until we went outside. Hey everyone, it's the Nano Guy V1. A bear slashed open my tent when I was camping, and I lived to tell the tale. It's actually a pretty interesting story, so you gotta hear me out and stick with me. At first, it's not gonna make any sense, but then I'm gonna tie it all together, and then it's gonna make sense. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, for a lot of my life, I was in Boy Scouts. My dad was a troop leader, and I was just an eager kid who wanted to get whatever I could done. This camp that I'm going to be talking about today was entirely dedicated to getting merit badges. This little detail plays a vital role in the story, because if you send a bunch of preteen boys to a Boy Scout camp to learn, that sucks. And it wasn't even learning about the cool stuff of Boy Scouts, it was learning about robotics and engineering. And I think that just added stress onto what happened next. We were nearing the end of the camp on one of the final days, and I was playing Gaga Ball with a bunch of older boys. Of course I was winning because I'm a fucking god at Gaga Ball. If you haven't heard about Gaga Ball, it's this game where you play in a pit, and you have a ball that you hit at each other's shins, and if you get hit in the shin, you're out. So you have to either run away from it or block it with your hands. So yeah, I was just absolutely destroying in Gaga Ball when I heard the news that Mark and Lucas got in a fight. To give further context, both Mark and Lucas were members of my troop. They were both in my year, so we were in the same den. I don't remember what it was called, but we were in the same little age group. And Mark had a history of not being able to control his emotions and getting physical when it comes to arguments. Lucas, on the other hand, had a history of being annoying. When we were this age, fights were common between the two because those two factors do not mix well, but this fight in specific was very different. From what I heard, it was just mostly screaming back and forth, with some threats being shared and a little bit of shoving, so it was a little bit physical, but nothing major yet. Fighting in Boy Scouts is a big deal because these are a bunch of little boys with pocket knives, and that does not mix well with pure anger. So obviously staff got involved, our troop leaders got involved, and did their best to separate the two. However, with most fights, there was a bit of a social divide in the troop because these were 2 of the 5 within my age group, and we were all friends before this moment. It's really awkward having 2 good friends fighting because you don't want to pick a side, you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, but that's kind of expected from you. If you do pick a side, congrats, you lost a friend, because this fight was serious. And this fight only got more serious as we went into the evening. Tensions were still rising, and it's also very important to note that I was living in a tent with Lucas at the time, one of the main people in this fight. And at this point, I'm just praying that Lucas shuts up because I'm living in a tent with him, and frankly, I don't want to be involved in this fight at all because it has gotten physical before and it probably will get physical again. I think at some point in the night, the staff and our troop leaders eventually forced them to apologize to each other, which forced apologies are stupid. They never resolve anything, and there's always going to be that underlying, they just don't do anything. So they said sorry to appease the Boy Scout overlords, and that was good enough. The Boy Scout leaders took it, they said, okay, you guys are good. However, anyone with half a brain knows that these two people still hate each other and are ready to fight again. So as I was going to sleep, I was just thinking, oh my god, something terrible is going to happen over the night. And I just never wanted to be involved in this. I figured that either he would 1, sneak into the tent to try to land a few punches on Lucas, or potentially 2, he would collapse our tent on top of us just to make us angry, I don't know. So I tucked into my way too warm sleeping bag and called it a night. Let me pause the story really quick to tell you guys one thing. Literally, as I am editing this, YouTube statistics is telling me that 0 people are subscribed, so please make sure you drop a subscribe. I'm going to post a lot of story times. I have a lot of interesting stories to tell, so make sure you subscribe. Let's get back to the video. Surprisingly, nothing woke me up. I slept so well that night, I swear to God, nothing woke me up, nothing disturbed me in my sleep. I didn't even hear anything. I felt like everything was alright until we went outside. When we went outside, we kind of just walked around the campsite. We were thinking everything's alright. It took us a little bit to notice the fucking tears and slashes on our tent. Our tent was basically slashed open. The only thing on my mind at this point was, oh my god, Mark actually woke up in the middle of the night, snuck out of his tent past the other tents to slash our tent open. First of all, what the hell were you thinking? You just got in a massive fight with him the day prior, and you literally threatened him. Plus you have a pocket knife on your person. You couldn't have been more obvious that you slashed this tent open. Second of all, what were you trying for? Were you trying to legitimately hurt us, or were you just trying to cause like an inconvenience to the troop who you're eventually gonna have to pay to fix this tent up? Obviously, this whole thing became a really serious situation really quick. I don't remember if Lucas's mom came and picked him up, but that's probably what happened. Meanwhile, Mark got a lot of his stuff confiscated, and I think that he was also taken aside just like so that they could deal with him. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I know that it wasn't looking good for his longevity in this troop. Needless to say, everyone was pretty much aware that Mark slashed our tent open. Which, as I stated earlier, he does have some anger problems, but this would be as serious as it's ever been. Of course, at this time, Mark is denying it, saying that he would never slash this tent open. In my mind, I'm just kind of thinking, give it up, man. Not even a day ago, you were threatening this boy, and now we have, like, slash marks on our tent. So I was just trying to keep my distance as far away from him as possible, because I was thinking, this kid is dangerous. This kid could have killed someone. But my dad, who is a troop leader, with a way more open mind, says, wait, we don't actually have 100% concrete evidence that Mark slashed that tent open. When most other troop leaders were certain that it was Mark who slashed the tent, my dad kind of became a big advocate alongside another troop leader that it could have been something else. Like a bear. In my mind, I'm just thinking that this is a wild jump to make. But the other troop leader who was advocating that it may have been a bear owned a nature preserve. So this guy basically knows everything about nature that there is to know. Now, I'm gonna tell you this part secondhand because I wasn't there, but this is what my dad said happened. Him and the nature preserve owner went back to the tent where it was scratched, and the nature preserve guy says, well, if it was a bear, then his paw would have been right here, and he puts his hand down and finds a bear paw print imprinted in the ground. This is crazy. This was ground shattering because all of the evidence in my mind led to Mark slashing our tent open, when in reality, it was a bear this whole time. Now, obviously, the scout leaders and the camp owners didn't really tell the campers that it was a bear because that would have been terrifying for the kids. So I really didn't have a clue that it wasn't Mark until after the camp. The nature expert, the guy who stuck his hand on the ground and found all the bear prints in the dirt, said that the bear was somewhere above 400 pounds. And if I'm being so honest, I'd much rather be stuck in a forest with like 12-year-old Mark weighing at under 120 pounds than a 400-pound bear. And adding on to the horror of everything, one of my biggest nightmares at the time was getting stuck outside of my house and this bear comes up from like a forest and comes and eats me. So like, it's kind of crazy that my nightmare kind of came to life. Not really. The only relation to my nightmare was the bear, but still it could have happened. So yeah, in my mind, this whole time, I'm just thinking, oh my god, Mark actually slashed my tent. He was gonna hurt me. In reality, it was this big, over 400-pound bear. Oh, also, a few days after this all happened, videos were posted online from that very campsite, like of a mama bear with 2 cubs. And she was around the same size as the nature expert was estimating that the bear who slashed open the tent would have been. So what I'm pretty certain happened was this mama bear and her 2 cubs were walking through our campsite during the night, and a strong gust of wind came and blew our tent a little bit, freaking out the mom, which then slashed at the tent to protect her and her babies. But yeah, that's just a guess. We're not certain if that was the same bear, but we do know that it was a bear. Luckily, nothing bad happened. It didn't get all the way within the tent and see us sleeping in there, because that could have gone way worse. If there's a message you want to take away from this video, take away this. If it's brown, lie down. If it's black, fight back. That's how you deal with bears. And if it's a polar bear, you're fucking screwed. So again, thank you guys for watching. I just want to reiterate, this is literally the first video that I am editing for this channel. So your subscription right now means more than it ever will, you know? You could have the biggest change on my channel if you subscribe right now. So please make sure you drop a subscribe, like the video, do all that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye.